You know that feeling? You walk out of a lecture and you're thinking, wow, I got all of that. But then later, you try to solve a problem and nothing. It's gone. Well, it turns out that feeling of learning can be one of the most misleading signals our brain gives us. So let's dive into the fascinating and honestly kind of weird science of what actually makes knowledge stick. Okay, let me ask you something. Think back to two different classes. One where the professor was amazing and everything just felt easy, and another that was a real struggle. Which one do you think really taught you more in the long run?
So in one corner, you've got the superstar lecturer. Their talk is polished, their slides are perfect, everything just flows. It feels effortless. And in the other corner, you have the active classroom. You know the one, the teacher makes you work in groups, you have to wrestle with problems, you get stuck, you argue with your classmates, it's messy, it's hard. Now, your gut probably screams that the smooth lecture is better learning. But is it?
That powerful feeling, that sense of easy understanding, is what we're going to look at first. We'll call it the illusion of learning, and a really clever experiment put it right under the microscope.
A team at Harvard decided to settle this. They took a big Intro to Physics class and split the students. One group got the traditional, polished lecture. The other group? They were thrown into the deep end with active, hands-on problem solving. We're talking same material, same instructor, but totally different experiences. The big question was, which group would actually learn the physics better?
And the results were not what you would expect. When students were asked how much they felt like they learned, the lecture group was way more confident. They felt great about it. But when they were actually tested on the material, the results completely flipped. The students who struggled in the active classroom scored way, way higher. They learned more, even though it felt like they were learning less. Wild, right?
So, what is going on here? Why does the method that feels worse actually produce better results? Well, it all comes down to a simple but powerful idea. Effortful learning is effective learning. Psychologists have a name for this phenomenon, cognitive fluency. It's a fancy term for a simple thing. When information is presented in a really smooth, easy-to-digest way, our brains don't have to work very hard. That ease feels good, and we mistake that good, fluent feeling for actual learning. A slick lecture is like the peak of cognitive fluency, but it can trick us into being passive spectators instead of active learners. And this quote from the researchers just hits the nail on the head. That struggle you feel in an active classroom, your brain reads it all wrong. You think, man, this is tough. I must be bad at this. But the truth is, that difficulty is the learning happening. It's your brain forging new pathways and building knowledge that's going to last.
The best way to think about it is like a gym workout. Watching a pro athlete lift weights on TV looks smooth, almost easy. That's the fluent lecture. Does watching them build your muscles? Of course not. To get stronger, you have to get in there and struggle with the weights yourself. It's hard. You might even fail a rep. But that struggle is exactly what builds strength. Active learning is just that. It's the tough but necessary workout for your brain.
Okay, so we've established that the messy, difficult path is often the better one for learning. But that brings up a whole other problem. How do you fairly test that learning, especially today with these massive university classes? This leads us to our next challenge, testing in the digital age. I mean, seriously, think about the logistics. You've got thousands of students, not enough giant lecture halls, and everyone has a different schedule. Trying to get every single person to take a test at the exact same time is becoming a total nightmare. And that has led to a pretty modern solution. It's called the asynchronous exam. So instead of, say, everyone showing up at 10 a.m. on Tuesday, students get a window of time, like any time between Wednesday and Saturday, to go to a testing center and take the exam on a computer. It's super flexible, lowers stress, but it also opens up one giant can of worms. Yep, you guessed it. The #1 fear is that the first students who take the test on Wednesday are just going to walk out and tell all their friends exactly what was on it. It seems obvious, right? It feels like a system that is just begging to be taken advantage of. But just like with learning, is our gut feeling about this actually correct? This brings us to another great study that pushed past those assumptions and just looked at the data to see what really happens.
So, in a big computer science class, researchers set up a really smart experiment. They split the class. For the first test, Group A had to take it at a specific time, while Group B got that flexible window. Then, for the next test, they swapped. It's a beautiful design because it means every student got to try it both ways, making the comparison super fair.
So, after all that worry about widespread cheating,
What was the massive grade-curving advantage that students got by taking the test later? Get this, it was 3%. That's it? A tiny bump, sure, but nowhere near the academic disaster everyone feared. Turns out our intuition was, once again, a little dramatic.
All right, let's bring these two stories together. On one hand, our feelings about learning can be dead wrong. And on the other, our fears about testing might be totally overblown. So what can we do with this?
The big theme here is that our gut instincts can really lead us down the wrong path. We naturally drift towards what feels easy, and we're naturally suspicious of new things that seem exploitable. But what both of these studies show is that if we actually look at the data and design things thoughtfully, we can get much better results for both learning and for testing.
And here's the best part. That study on testing didn't just measure the problem. It also found a really simple, practical solution. They found one specific design trick that made that little 3% advantage shrink even more.
The silver bullet was randomization. It's so simple. When each student got an exam with slightly different numbers or scrambled question orders, the advantage of taking it later got even smaller, almost disappearing. I mean, you can't just text your friend, the answer is 42, if their version of the question has completely different numbers. It's a simple fix, but it works. So what about making that hard but good style of learning actually stick? Well, the Harvard study found a solution for that too, and it's all about communication. Instructors just need to be upfront with their students. Tell them, look, this is going to feel difficult sometimes, and that's a good thing. That struggle is your brain getting stronger. And then giving them an early quiz to prove that the method is working helps build that trust.
This quote from the researchers really sums up the whole thing perfectly. The biggest hurdle isn't the difficulty of the work, it's our own mindset. To really learn effectively, we have to accept that struggle is part of the process and learn to ignore that tempting but misleading feeling of ease. So, the next time you're in a class or trying to learn something new and it feels just a little too easy, maybe you should be suspicious. And when it feels hard, when you're frustrated and really have to grapple with it, well, you might just be doing your best learning. The real question is, are you going to choose the tough workout or the easy stroll?